what's up, makers? It's Greater Nemo again, and tonight I wanted to take you through what I've been doing with the KOOPARENA leading up to the latest installment, which I just uploaded yesterday, KOOPARENA 5, subject to change. So I want to take you quickly through how the mechanisms have developed from the original up until now, and give you a little insight into exactly what's different about the latest one in comparison to the older ones. So, what I've got loaded up right now is the original course, Can You Survive the KOOPARENA? It's got the wave counters on the sides and everything. So, if you've watched my earlier videos, then you'll have seen this in the original video. You've got the wave counter here on the sides. These bricks act as gates whenever the P-switch is hit, and so it drops them one at a time. Then you've got the pretty standard design that I've been using since this one for the mob spawners for the feeder mechanism. Then, coming back up here, you have the original design that I was using for the timer, which used conveyor belts to carry the P-switches down, and then these moving platforms at the end of each of the conveyors to lengthen the amount of time that the P-switch was held there. And so, I mean, that's pretty much it. The KOOPARENA, and this goes for any of them, the way that they work is based primarily on 3 components, and that's the exit lock, the mob feeders, and the wave timer. So you can see up at the top, the POW block is in the wave timer, and so it drops down, and the POW block will kill the munchers, which is the exit lock, and then you've got the feeders right up here. So now we're going to load up K1. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't played it, I redid the original KOOPARENA to mess with some of the bugs, to try to work them out, really, and to replace some of the inner workings with some of the more up-to-date designs. So this course is K1 KOOPARENA Reprise, and it's literally almost exactly the same. All the waves are the same, all of that. The way that it pretty much works from start to finish is all the same, except up here, the P-switch never drops. You don't have to chase the P-switch. Starting with K3, if I remember correctly, I figured out how to have... No, it was this one that I started with. From this one on, I figured out how to automate triggering the P-switch at the end of the waves. So the P-switch doesn't drop in, you don't have to chase it, you don't have to lose sight of what you're doing in trying to survive in the arena to trigger the end of the wave. That's all done for you at this point, from this point on. The spawners are literally exactly the same. They were almost completely untouched. I may have moved some one-way walls or something in the background, but for the most part, the spawners, the waves themselves, the mobs that are actually in the spawners, totally unchanged. I took these guys right here and used them. They're holding beetle shells. There we go. They're holding beetle shells, and at the very ends will drop down and knock the POW block out from under itself, exactly the same way that it does in K4, which was in my last video. I cleaned up some of the visual noise on the sides because I had the wave counters over here, but no one really noticed the wave counters because, you drop in and you're immediately focused on what's happening in the arena. And that's good, that's what I want. So I decided to scrap the wave counters from there. It was just easier, and it gave me more space to work with. So up here you have literally the same sort of timer design that I used in K4 again. So it uses these blocks to tick the timer down. Let me move this over here. Let me drop in here, and I'll hit play, and you can see exactly how it works. So whenever the P-switch runs out, the one that's on the conveyor right now, on the bottom conveyor, will roll down, and then it'll slowly tick down from block to block. Because being pushed up against something, being pushed up against the conveyor belts and the one-way walls, any solid surface for the most part will not trigger the P-switch. Only the bottom surface of specific things will trigger a P-switch. So like bill launchers, thwomps, your foot, Yoshi's foot, but only if you're on Yoshi. That sort of thing. And so once you start the timer, it's totally automated from there. And to start the timer, all you have to do is come in through that door, and the two bill launchers on the clouds, the one on the left holds a P-switch, which is auto-triggered whenever you enter the room. You're so far off-screen at the beginning of the course that it doesn't trigger it. So, let's go ahead and load up K5. Now, for K5, I actually went and took out a lot of the background to make for a cleaner demonstration. So, on top here, I decided to put in, a small, sort of one-screen level. For someone who doesn't want to play through the arena, you're more than welcome to go through the top. It's its own little gauntlet. But, if the arena is what you came here for, you go into the pipe. And so then you have this monstrosity of a series of mechanisms. So, what is that doing there? Get out of there. So, for this one, the mechanism works differently, and it's based off of the game's object permanence. So what I mean by that is that whenever you go through a door or a pipe, certain things respawn. P-switches will respawn, POW blocks will respawn, mobs that are out and about will respawn, blocks that were placed on tracks will respawn in their original positions. Everything basically resets, but there are some things that don't come back. If you put a brick on a track and break it, it will come back, but loose bricks, loose coins, if they're broken, or if they're knocked off of the background by a POW block or something, then they won't come back. And so, with that in mind, I figured out that I could use them basically functionally as bits in my circuit. And so, the way that the whole thing operates is whenever the round starts, it checks to see which bits are flipped. So these coins down here, these coins and here underneath these launchers increment with the round. And so you stay on the same screen, you go through the door to reset everything, and the next brick is broken out of the sequence, and based on which bricks are broken, it loads the current wave spawners in before the rest of them. And so, doing this, I was able to condense 5 waves into 7 launchers. The innermost launcher on each side is for the trigger, but doesn't hold mobs for the waves. So, seriously, that's it. Those are your 5 waves. And after playing some of another user's courses that he worked on based on some of the older KOOPARENA designs, I decided I was going to feed them in from both sides, because I had everything put together in a way such that I knew I could work all of that into the space that I had, and so as a result I was also able to make this arena perfectly symmetrical by putting it in the sublevel. So, whenever you come in, it hits these P-switches and it turns these coins. Brick is broken out by a beetle launcher. beneath these are actually more donut blocks on tracks. And so that rolls up, lifts this guy off of here, and hooks onto this track. And so these will push this plant with a bomb and this launcher as far over as possible. And then this one will come up and will crush the bomb up against the next launcher and will blow out the next of these bricks in sequence. So this is the shutoff valve. So for these, once you have the 5th block broken, you get the 5th wave spawner, which is right here on the end. But with these, which also break in the same sequence, whenever the 5th block is broken, this spawner will sit, or this launcher rather, will sit right here. But after you end that wave and you start the next one, there will be nothing else to block it, so it hits this wall and falls down into the conveyor assembly down here. And so since it's 3 blocks tall, it will block the whole thing. Then, since that one is 3 tall, and everything is blocked, this spawner, the innermost spawner underneath on both sides, will have time to drop down into the feed before the rest of them cut off the feed from it. This whole thing is very, very specifically timed to be able to operate in the way that it does. These tracks right here hold your power-ups. There's not really an intermission in this arena like in the older arenas, because of the way that it's all put together. Like, whenever you go through the doors, everything restarts. You hit the P switch, but that doesn't intrinsically trigger release of power-ups. Whenever these 2 launchers come near, you get leaves. They drop leaves every time they come down, and they're timed such that you get leaves when you drop out of the pipe, which is your, air quotes, intermission. Then you get leaves right as the P switch is ending to start the wave. You get another drop right in the middle of the wave, and you get your last drop right before the end of the wave, right before you're able to go through the doors again. So, to end each wave, you have these 2 doors right here. You cannot go through these doors because there's no floor beneath them. If you move the doors up and you can stand up against the top half, you still can't go through it. You have to be able to stand more or less even with the base of it. If you stand off the corner of something, that will work. If you have a donut block next to it and you are riding a donut block past the door, you can go through the door as you're doing that. That works. But in this one, I'm using the same timer design that I used in the in K1 and in K4 and so on, except I have a launcher in it instead of a P-switch, because I don't need a P-switch in it. What I need is a floor. And so this ticks through at exactly the same pace as the P-switch. Then at the end it drops down onto these conveyors, which you can kind of see behind the lava, bounces up on this block, and falls into place right here, giving you a floor to go through the door, which starts the next wave. These also contain firing out starmen, which makes the little light bulb sound, so you have a pretty clear indicator of when the wave is over. So you can get your bearings, get some starmen, be invincible for a second, ignore everything, and just go through the door. These guys down here have beetle shells. I didn't originally have shells in here, but I ended up putting shells in because, 1, they're hella useful just as an extra point of health. 2, they're hella useful for not taking damage from the top. And 3, they're incredibly useful as an anti-cheese mechanism. So these fire out at regular intervals, bounce up off of those note blocks, and if you're trying to crouch in the corner and hide with a hat on or something so that things will just bounce off, it will literally pick you up and carry you across the room, because that's not how we do shit in Kooparena. Up here in the middle are cheap launchers, because aside from being able to lift people up and carry them out of the safest spots in the arena, I find flaming cheeps to be the single most effective anti-cheese mechanism that I've implemented yet, even more so than boots. Because if you look at a boot, it's not going to approach you, but a flaming Cheep Cheep, a flaming winged Cheep Cheep, will pursue you relentlessly. A red one will, because the red ones will chase you. And so they will jump up against you, beneath you. If they hit you from overhead, if they hit the shell, they'll die. But if they hit you anywhere else, your shell is gone. And then, since you've been crouching in a corner trying to cheese the arena, you have enemies everywhere. And it's not a good situation to be in. These are situations that I've playtested over and over and over to try to balance out, so that even for people who come into the arena to try to do these sorts of things, I try to take that option away. So up here you have the two exit pipes, which are overlapping on the other side. They come out a single pipe right under the card at the end. The shutoff valve causes these to drop, which have lactic clouds in them. And so you jump in the cloud, and you can use the cloud to go through the pipe, because otherwise you can't go through it. You don't have room to build up speed to fly through it or anything. That's it. You have to get the cloud. You get the cloud when you beat all 5 waves. That's how it works. So I'm going to start this and give it a sort of run through real quick, so that you can see how everything operates from wave to wave. So I'm going to put a little donut block here, so that I can just go through the door repeatedly to demo the mechanism, and we'll see how everything works. I'm not really going to talk about wave balance in this one, because that's not what this one is about. This one is about the implementation of object permanence, and how everything works. That loud is from the top with the bomb. Whenever the bomb breaks one of the blocks, it does that. So just so you can see how everything's being incremented, you can see the second wave here is chomps, rocky wrenches, and Koopa paratroopers. So we'll go through the door again, and then you can see this next wave is chomps, rocky wrenches, and plants. So you can see the last one is just sort of being held up here. We're going to ignore that for the most part. Go back through the door again. Get in there. So I'll hold you up so you can see really what's happening. I have these up here to hold you up top long enough for the POW blocks to reliably trigger. And so you go through those, and again, you get the predictable wave rotation. 5th round, 5th spawner drops. Nice and easy. P-switch finishes, lay low in, and you should see giant moles. That's the final round. So, let's go through the door, and then you can see on the ends, there's the shutoff valve. So then, you see those guys drop down, and they will dispense clouds for you. And since there's nothing blocking this wall, you'll also see these will just openly fire storming out. It looks like no. There we go. Here's our cloud. And so you can go in the pipe, and then you finish the level. And so that's how I built a new kind of Kooparena, using a spin on the same mechanics that I've been using, but exploiting the game's built-in object permanence between waves. So I hope this was educational for everybody, and hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.